Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this webinar. This is Nicole Davis and Kristen Craren with Therapy Practice University, where we are on a mission to help therapists build and grow their ideal practice. Today's webinar, we will be covering your practice pain points and helping you make those painless. And thank you for joining us today. I am Nicole Davis. I have over 20 years of experience in financial services and working with individuals and small business owners to help them maximize their revenues, their profitability, and their overall financial wellness. So thank you for joining us, Kristen.
Hi, my name is Kristen Craren. I'm an LPC, and I am so excited to give you this information today because making your life easier is my passion. So let's go ahead and get started. So what parts of your private practice business feel difficult to you? You can go ahead and take a piece of paper right now and do some brainstorming and write some of these things down. You can pause us if you need to, so that it can give you a minute or two to think about this. And the next slide, there's a list of what we hear generally, and so you'll get some ideas from that as well. So go ahead and pause us right now and then come back maybe in a minute or two and see if what you come up with matches what we've seen. Okay, so there are three categories of business pain points. We have marketing, business practices, and money. And difficulties arise in each one of these categories. In the marketing category, therapists usually have a really hard time attracting the clients that they really want to work with. So therapists will often experience these phone calls that feel totally random of people that they aren't a good fit with, they don't want to work with, it's outside of their wheelhouse or whatever, but it's just not the client for them. Also, we hear a lot of questions about how do I get my name out there? There's still some residual old school effects or ideas about knocking on doors, handing out business cards, giving out flyers, cold calling. And those things aren't super effective anymore. And some of you are wondering, well, what do I do instead of that? What else is there? And that leads into, how do I choose a marketing strategy? The internet and technology has boomed in just the last 10 years. And it has changed the way we can grow our businesses, no matter what industry you're in, really. But even as therapists, it's really changed the way that we can grow, reach our clients, and connect with our community. And it can be very overwhelming because there are so many options. And the next issue that we find with marketing is, okay, so like, how do I fill my practice? And your practice being full is going to be very subjective for you. For some people, that's 20 clients. For some, it's 15. For others, it's 35 clients a week, believe it or not. So in this next category, business practices, time management is a huge issue. Therapists are typically running around like chicken with their heads cut off with their scheduling, when they answer phones, interactions with doing intakes, just managing clients, and also all of the business parts of their private practice along with that. So you're wearing a lot of hats as a therapist because you do a lot of the business work on your own. And oftentimes you don't know how to do it because that's not something that they offer education on in your college curriculum. So like I said, managing cancellations is definitely a business practices problem that we hear a lot. Again, I said scheduling, paying yourself. How do I pay myself? How do I manage my taxes? These are questions that come up a lot, and they're very simple answers. But the answers don't feel that simple because this isn't your field. Your field are feelings and empathy and problem solving and talking about these things with your clients. So worrying about how to pay yourself or delegating duties or dealing with taxes feels taxing. So I have these arrows drawn here because these issues with the arrows are connected to money issues that come up in your business and in your practice. So like everything's tied together. And it creates, it can be a vicious cycle or it can be a beautiful cycle depending on how you're handling everything. And so therapists want to know, some therapists want to know, not all therapists, but some therapists want to know, how can I make more money? How can I help people make their lives better, but also feel stable, feel like I can go on a vacation or two every year, and feel like my bills are going to be paid and that I can buy some new clothes or go out on a date with my spouse and do this comfortably? How can I run my business in a smart way? And so that's what this money aspect of the private practice is about, is in my mind about stability for your family and for your business. Because without a stable business, without a stable life of your own, you can't do the helping work that you want to do. Okay. So here is this slide. I threw this in here because all of those things that we just talked about are affected by your mindset. You really have to take a look at the things that you're struggling with in private practice, and I'll go back here and look at each individual thing down to your fee. And Nicole can give you information on that. You know, at another point, you can always ask questions in our group about that. But the mindset behind your fee, or managing cancellations, or being profitable could be driving why these things are difficult for you. So just keep in mind that there are things behind the scenes that you may not be fully aware of that are driving these difficulties that you're having. So here's the learning piece. Let's talk about marketing. I really want to help you hone in on what your marketing plan needs to be for you. Everybody's marketing plan isn't going to be the same because we're all so unique, and we have to feel comfortable with our marketing plan. So where one person might enjoy blogging, it might be the bane of somebody else's existence, and that is okay. Blogging isn't the end-all be-all of growing your business. So if you take a look at these things, these ways that you can market your business, there are so many, and this isn't all of it. So as you're thinking about marketing your private practice online, you can see now that you have a visual that, like, why it's so overwhelming. You can do LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, blog. You can focus on your SEO. You can write an ebook. I mean, if you try to do all of these things, of course you're going to be overwhelmed. So right now, I just want you to take a look at these and read through them to yourself.
You can pause it right here and look at this list and really look at each one of your options and see which one feels most natural to you. And maybe list maybe 2 or 3 that feel most natural to you and easy to manage, perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. You talk with your clients about this frequently, I'm sure, that just don't fight your nature so much and go with what works. So pick things that you feel like you can stick with. And I suggest, wouldn't you say pick about 3?
I would say pick about 3. I mean, some of these, like Psychology Today, right? You do that, you maintain it every so often. It's not a weekly, daily thing. Some of these options are more labor intensive than others. So just keep that in mind as well. And then also keep in mind 2 or 3 to start with is fine. In a world where there are billions of people that reside, there is a surplus of ways to let people know who you are and what you do and what problems you solve for them.
3, with that plan of blogging every week or once a month or often for a set amount of days. I typically suggest 90, but you can certainly do 60 and see how that goes. And you have to stick with something and then evaluate it. Whereas most oftentimes just humans in general say, I'm going to do this thing, but they don't really do it. And then the evaluation they have about this thing that.
Right, the fruits of their labor is not maybe an accurate representation because it wasn't something that could be consistently done for a period of 60 or 90 days.
Exactly. Good point. All right. So hopefully you paused in this previous slide and came up with a few things that you think are possible for you to do with your unique personality to get the word out about your private practice and what an amazing practitioner you are. Now I would like to help you with Psychology Today, because Psychology Today is something that you're most likely already doing, but also probably not getting very many calls from. And we are here to teach you why. The reason why is because, let me see, I'm going to go here first. Okay, so this slide is the one that I want to show you. Typically, Psychology Today profile looks a little bit something like this. Coming to counseling is often not an easy decision to make, and I commend you for taking the first step and researching your options. In order for the process to be as beneficial as possible, it's important that you find someone that you can trust and open up to. Counseling often involves discussing blah, 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 is what your potential client is doing in their head. Like, as soon as they read coming to counseling is often not an easy decision to make, they're thinking, absolutely, you're right, I don't want to. I don't want to come. Or typically, therapists, because we're so used to writing literature reviews, we put a lot of heady information in, or sympathy, or information about our degrees. Nobody cares. And so they pass you over. Or you have a picture on your profile that's not very professional, and it's not a.
It's a first impression, right? That's the first impression that somebody has of you. So you're a wonderful person, you're a wonderful counselor, but if your picture gives someone a certain feeling when they first look at it, they're not as inclined, if their impression isn't favorable, they're not as inclined to give you a call. They'll look for another counselor. So that's another way of editing or improving the Psychology Today program.
Yes. So here's Psychology. People do what you're probably not getting through. How to. These are the quite literal steps you need to take to write your Psychology Today profile. And actually, you can go ahead and go over and look at my Psychology Today profile if you want to. It is my own horn, but this month's is a very good example of what to write. So, and you know how to do that. Just look me up by my name and you should find it pretty easily. And I'm located in St. Louis, so you can narrow things down. But anyway, so you want to tell your client their story. Right now, you're probably thinking that that's hard to do on Psychology Today because they have a word limit. But that's fine. Actually, that's even better because it forces you to keep it concise. So what you're going to do in that very first block is meet them where they are at. Speak to their struggles, define their struggle for them, tell a story.
Use the words you,
yeah,
feeling, or your thinking, and write to one person.
Yep. Or just,
one,
yeah.
You, or try to, by telling the story, instead of peanut butter spreading a generalization to try and capture a lot of people.
That's another. Like, okay, I want to try to capture everybody with the Psychology Today profile. So they end up with a lot of maybes and sort ofs and kind ofs in their writing. And it sort of leaves clients confused because they're not really sure if you can work with them or not, or what you do.
It sends a confusing message. And if somebody didn't have doubts when they first started reading that, the message of doubt and into their mind as they're reading the story.
Have a niche, specialize, and you don't have to have one niche or specialty. When you are writing your Psychology Today profile, that profile is your specialty just for that month or however long that you have that posted. It's very please help, and then you can probably help them.
So you keep saying for that month. Are you saying that it helps to update your Psychology Today profile every so often?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. So Psychology Today has this algorithm that, like, if you update your profile once a month, it like kicks you back to the top of the pile. So when
You're fresh
yeah, because you're
and active.
yeah, last time we did this presentation, we talked to a therapist that said she goes in and calls herself from her own Psychology Today profile because that kicks you up to the top
That's
too.
right, because it's active.
So you definitely want to write your Psychology Today profile, save it in a Word document, and then the next month write another one, save that in a Word document, and eventually you'll have like 5 or 6 that
You can alternate. You can just copy and paste it into your Psychology Today.
And if you're in a hurry, you can just change your picture or click some different buttons on your specialty that like match your profile to kind of have the same effect. Like it just making small changes in there will do the same thing for sure. So
be active.
yes. So put it in your schedule to do something like that. But back to how to write to them. I've put it in 3 steps. How to write your Psychology Today profile. Grab their attention, connect with them, and then that very last paragraph of your profile needs to call them to action. Let them know what to expect. So I think on mine it says something like, give me a call. You can expect a 15-minute conversation about how I can help, and then I put my telephone number in there as well too, so that they have it, so that they know what to do. You would think that they know what to do, but they don't know what to do. They need you to tell them what to do and what to expect and what's going to happen next, and then you need to answer your phone.
Yes. Answer the phone, and then if somebody calls and you happen to be in session or something like that, make sure you call them back within a certain period of time, or set your message to say, if a call is received after such and such time today, I will call you back on the next business day by such and such time, and actually do it, so that you set the expectations and they're not calling around to 5 other therapists thinking that you're not responding to them.
So here is an example of what to do. I love things that are outside the box, and I love the beginning of this sentence. Does life just suck right now? I mean, if you're in this position, you're sitting here going like, yes, it really freaking does.
Right? If you're in this position, you're saying, wow, this person gets me right off the bat.
Yeah. And people don't expect this from therapists.
No, not at all.
They expect us to be stuffy and like
clinical, very clinical.
Yeah.
Very just sort of talking around the issue instead of just addressing the feeling.
Life sucks right now. Actually, I had a client say that to me yesterday. He said, like, I just want a therapist to be real with me. I would sit down and say, my life sucks. And I want that clinician to be like, you're right, it does.
What do we want to do? Turn that around.
Right? Exactly. So just one of your problems went away, what would it feel like? That gets them thinking. Mood change. What would it feel like if you could breathe again? Oh my gosh, this person knows that I can't breathe. They understand me. Maybe your anxiety or sadness is gone, or perhaps you're finally getting the help you need from your loved ones. God, it's like this person's reading my mind. Trying to figure out all of this by yourself can be overwhelming. They're thinking,
I'm not in this alone.
I'm not, And then I have in here thrown a life event here or there, to fill in those spaces of how you want to connect with your client. And then they feel like you get them. So this is just a portion of what your Psychology Today profile will look like, but this is a great start to something that grabs attention.
And then the pain that you're addressing for them right here is, I won't let that happen. You're in this with them. As their therapist, you are in this with them to help them, to work alongside them or with them to improve their situation. They're not in this alone.
Right. So we already went through this. This is the don't of the Psychology Today profile. Don't be clinical and boring. Okay. So we're back here because I want you to just take a moment and piece of paper, pen and paper, write down a brand new Psychology Today profile based off of the guidance that you have on this slide. Tell their story, grab their attention, connect with them, and then call them to action. So you're going to need to pause us here again, probably for 5 or 10 minutes this time, and just really think about this. And then you need to head over to your Psychology Today profile that you have now and go ahead and put in this new information, and make sure your picture is a professional picture. If you don't have the extra funds or the time, have your husband or wife, take a picture of you with their phone and just
natural setting, go outside, or something green, natural, and just take a good, sharp.
And be yourself. I get so many calls from my picture that you just look really open and funny, and I just wanted to work with you. So just show your sweet, wonderful personality, and that is going to help along with the content here. And then leave it up for 30 days and see what happens. And I already gave you the secret tip. Update your profile in any small way monthly to trigger more traffic, 100%. Okay, so this is the part where, this is where you take over, Nicole?
We did this one together. I think you shared what you do in your practice to reduce the financial impact of no-shows and cancellations. And so you can kind of walk through the beginning part of this, and this leads into the financials.
Financials this is a huge struggle for seasoned therapists.
Right.
I'm sort of set aback when I hear somebody who's been in practice for 20 years struggling with the financial impact of no-shows and cancellations, because you're just sitting in your office, you're not making any money, you are prepared to work with your client, and now here you are taking it's the worst.
Right. I mean, you've reserved that time in your business, right, for one person. Perhaps other people have called and you said, no, I don't have that time available. And then therefore, when they don't show up, you don't earn that money. And that when you don't earn that dedicated time because you weren't able to do your work, it is lost revenue. You still have the same expenses. There are only so many hours in a week. It's not like you can just call up another client and say, oh, I have this time open, come on in. Can you make it here in 5 minutes? I mean, maybe sometimes, but that's not a good way of operating. That seems a little chaotic, right? So there are ways to minimize the financial impact of no-shows. And it also is a good way to, let your clients know that you respect the time that you've set for them, and it should be a mutual relationship when it comes to, yes, we scheduled this time, we're going to honor this time, I am holding this time for you. But if you don't show up, or if you have to cancel within a certain period of time, then then it does come at an expense. I mean, doctors do it all the time. Doctors, dentists do it all the time. And it's a common business practice for them. Why shouldn't it be a common business practice for other service providers? See?
And I was like, so bad. But I respect his time twice now, and he inspired me. And so here is how, as a therapist, you reduce the financial impact of no-shows. And the way you do that is you draw boundaries. And the reason why you haven't drawn boundaries yet has to do with your mindset. Maybe you're scared, or you feel guilty, or you feel like
the only way it makes sense for you to get paid, or the only way you're comfortable feeling like you can charge somebody, is if you're doing the therapy itself, as opposed to respecting your own boundaries and respecting your own time and respecting the time of the other clients that you weren't able to see during that time, is to set a boundary of, okay, well, we've dedicated this time. If there's no show or a cancellation, then I will be charging you for that session.
Yes. And if you do not respect your time, your clients will not respect your counseling process. It takes away the meaning from this is kind of laissez-faire kind of thing. Oh, I don't go.
There's no consequence. We're human and we need consequences. If something matters, there's usually a consequence.
I haven't known.
Right, you learned.
So here's what we do: is you take credit card numbers, you update your informed consent document, and you put an extra couple lines in your payment portion about how you keep their credit card information in a HIPAA secured private area, which I hope is online practice or whatever you're using. They're all very safe. Those systems actually have an option for saving the credit card, because you can actually automate payments to where you're not even, the payment like interaction isn't even happening between you and your client. It's just automatic. But if you want to physically run their card or take their money, you keep their credit cards on file in their client file, but also you can keep it in your Square in your Square app, and they sign off on this. This is QuickBooks, yeah. So this is all okay. This is all ethical. This is everything is okay with this. If you're thinking like, oh my God, I can't do this. Yes, you can. You need to think about what is in your mindset that's causing you to have resistance with this. Or maybe you're thinking, heck yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And if you're listening to this and you want an example of what the informed consent can look like for something like this, I will send you a copy of mine and share it with you, and you can just have it. That's fine with me. But just keeping credit cards on file will nearly eliminate no-shows.
Right. And if you do want an example of that, feel free to email us at therapypracticeuniversity@gmail.com, and in the subject line say, please seeking, or please send me example of informed consent.
You too, and it will save you. Gosh, it's probably saved me like $600 this month already.
Right.
Just for silly things, and that's fine. And they know it. We've had the discussion. Everybody's on the same page. It's not a secret.
Right. It's not like you're not talking about this and then all of a sudden, bam, here it is. I mean, it's the expectation is set at the beginning. This.
Practice, because if you are successful, then you are a more successful clinician in session.
That's absolutely 100% accurate. I mean, we can love what we do to the moon and back, but unless we are meeting our own basic financial needs of not just our business, but our own personal life, it makes our work more difficult, because we are more driven by fear, the scarcity mindset, just the concern and worry. So, I've been working with business owners and families and individuals for over 20 years on finances in various capacities, but I have a real passion for small business owners, service providers, because we are the business, right? We are the business. Even if we have some employees, we are the business. It's our creation. We are the brand. So I want you to think for just a moment, what is the number one step to financial success in your private practice and in your personal life as well? But we're talking about private practice here. And just think to yourself, what do I think is the number one step to financial success? Some people might say, having a full practice, or seeing 20 clients a week, or something like that. But let me go to the next slide here, okay? We tend to put the cart before the horse sometimes. And we naturally do that because, it's a progressive path forward. But for us to get to the point where we want to be, we first have to figure out, where are we today? Let's take stock of where we are today and just name that. And then have a very clear picture. And this takes some time. This isn't something that we just take 5 minutes and say, this is what I want my practice to look like. I mean, honestly, it takes some self-reflection and some visionary work to really think about, where do you see your practice? Ideally, if you could wave a wand, what would your practice look like? What is your biggest goal? Now, for some people, they might dream of having a group practice. For others, their dream is to have a full practice with just themselves, for them to also have the flexibility to spend time with their young children or their family, or travel, for them to be able to save, without concern in their retirement accounts. Or everybody's different. So, I want to encourage you to pause this for a moment, like we have in the last 2 exercises. Pause this for a moment and just take 5 or 10 minutes and really think about your vision. And you don't have to figure out how you're going to get there just yet. Just think about your vision, because if you can conceptualize what you want and believe in what you want, then your actions within your practice, whether you're contemplating starting one, whether you just started one, whether you've been in practice for 15 years, it doesn't matter. If you just envision what you want, ideally, in your practice, then you will work towards accomplishing that. Okay, so hopefully you've taken 5 or 10 minutes to think about what your ideal practice will look like. And then, just know that you will work to accomplish that. And we have to take stock of where we're at. Financially, we have to take stock of where we're at. And in order to do that, we need to know where we are at today, as well as where we need to be as profitable as possible, be profitable in our business. Because if we're running in the negative all the time, you don't have a business. I've always heard this cliche, and it's so true. If you're not profitable in your business, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. So let's make sure that you're profitable in your business. And part of tracking whether or not you're profitable in your business is understanding your profit and loss statement. So there's a couple of exercises to arrive at your profit and loss statement. One is, you should probably have a plan each year for what you want your year to look like, from a revenue perspective, from an expense perspective, from I need to or want to make X number of dollars this year. What do I need to do to earn that? And then what are the softwares, space, what are the tools I need in order to accomplish that? Psychology Today subscriptions.
Do you can you remember when we asked why the people that we worked with this exact same presentation.
So there were 20 people in the live seminar, and I think 4 people raised their hand.
Resistance. Honestly, in my own business, like I have to make work with my numbers because it sucks. Every single time, yay! I have the very first picture of like what the numbers are.
Right.
Because like, or better or worse is not accurate unless you have hard data.
Right, and sometimes we don't look at numbers in our own practice because, or this is what I found, is that sometimes it's fear driven. Fear of seeing something that you don't want to see, or fear that you're not doing as well as you feel like you're doing. And oftentimes our fears are inaccurate. So when we actually look at the numbers, people are surprised that they're doing better than they thought they were doing. And then that fear goes away, and we're able to focus on, okay, this is where you're at, and this is what's working. It is so important. Right. Correct. Pleasantly surprised, and also it really highlights what's working and what's not. So if you can see what's working, you can do more of that to grow your practice even more.
And my perception was that I don't make really much money, or I don't get many clients from referrals. And I was like, a third of my revenue is referrals.
That was your perception. So your perception was, I don't get much, a lot of my revenue does not come from referrals. And you found out that 33% of your practice's revenue comes from referrals. So then that tells you, yes, I need to continue nurturing my referral sources and my relationships with my referral sources, because 33% of my business is dependent on referrals, right? And then it probably also tells you that the other portion is attributed to online advertising or Psychology Today, and that reaffirms the behaviors that you need to invest in to drive more clients to you, because you're solving problems.
Yeah, and I learned that most of the clients that were referring to. And so I took 1 hour last week, and I put together like a 4-line review document that I was able to share with my past clients in simple practice. Sent them an email, said, go review your service. Even if they were 6 months a year out, at least I had my own.
Right.
And I got 3 new appointments because they got that email.
Nurture.
The relationships I already had, and how easy is that?
I know, you've already overcome that initial hurdle, that initial contact, right? So just nurturing the relationship. It does, and it comes from paying attention to and asking the question of, how did you hear about me? How did you learn about me? You know, where did you see my profile, or what have you? How did you find me? So a profit and loss statement is simply that. A profit and loss statement looks at how much revenue are you bringing in, so that we call that cash inflow. How many expenses do you have going out? And yes, your wages and paying yourself should be part of those expenses. And then how much do you have left over? And obviously they're all interrelated, or should be interrelated, but by looking at your monthly revenue, your monthly expenses, and determining, okay, what does my profit or loss look like? You're recognizing where you are today and taking stock of whether or not that aligns with where you're going. And by understanding where your revenue sources are coming from, like how people are finding you, how clients are finding you, and what expenses softwares, advertising, coffees, luncheons, what have you, you can actually determine your return on your investments in those areas. And you can say periodically from time to time, is this working? Is this not working? I can get rid of this expense, or I need to put more money into this initiative.
All of this running weekly.
Correct.
So it's not just this webinar.
Right.
We can literally teach you how to do this, and the goal has this uncanny ability to make it feel doable.
It is doable. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you. Yes, yes. And there's a package that's been put together to go through this exercise and really have a package or a profit and loss put together for you, as well as one-on-one accountability following that, right? Right. Right. Just like anything, it's developing a new habit, right? It's exercising a new muscle. And as you exercise this new muscle, you'll become stronger, more knowledgeable. It won't be as hard to do it on your own going forward. It's just getting started and doing it and learning how to look at the numbers and what it means for you. It's very empowering. So I think we answered why it's important. Okay, so here are just some examples of expenses, and this is not a complete list by any stretch of the imagination of expenses, but just to give you an idea, and you can start, sort of listing out what your expenses are or what you perceive your expenses to be. If you haven't started your own private practice yet, just start making a list and add to it as you think of other things. Your wages, you have to be able to, you have to pay yourself.
But why your wages are considered expense and maybe in it wasn't a concept for me. Expenses are my wages. Why is that an expense? It's my wage.
Right, you are working, but you need to respect yourself and treat yourself as a person working within the business. If the business isn't generating enough revenue after a certain period of time to pay yourself, then the business will not long-term remain viable. You have to think of your own wages as a priority, or else the business will eventually go under because you have your own household to run. You need transportation, food, you have your own necessities to meet. So we have to plan for what do those wages look like? And when somebody is contemplating, if they haven't yet started their own private practice, or if they're just starting their private practice, yes, there may be a period of time during the ramp-up period where they're not paying themselves a wage, perhaps, because they're getting things started, right? They have to rent an office, or they need to develop a website, or invest in some training, or whatever the situation is. There is a period of time where we just keep investing the profits back into the business to get it up and running. But eventually, you have to be able to pay yourself a wage. So if down the line you're not able to pay yourself a reasonable wage, and reasonable is different for every person, right? A reasonable wage. Then we need to look at other things. Correct. Right. Because we wouldn't go into somebody else's business and do all this work and expect to do it for free, right? So, like I said, there's an initial investment usually when you're starting a practice, and that's understandable. But after a while, you have to be making a wage, or else something isn't working right. Either expenses are too high or income is too low. The business income is too low, and then we look at, okay, what needs to change there to provide a reasonable wage. Okay, and then income. And so income Wow, there are a lot of sources of income. There are so many opportunities for therapists. I mean, this is just scratching the surface. This is just sort of what comes to mind. It's amazing how many different sources of income there can be for one therapist. Not at all. And if you enjoy teaching, you know what, you could do teaching and you can do therapy in your office and you can write a book or do a workshop or consult with a company or yes, they do. Hmm.
They are heavy in teaching their employees how to communicate.
Communication is vital to the success of any business, whether it's Monsanto, Bayer, or yeah, you're okay, you're fine. Monsanto, or a smaller organization as well. In particular, these are really good ones, but the family has to understand that something needs to change and they need to invest in it. But small family-owned businesses and helping the family respect each other in the business as well as in the family, that's a great opportunity to do some coaching and therapy. It is. Mm-hmm.
You know, sit down and write about things that you think you might like to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and we're here to help you establish what sort of fees you might charge for different types of services or planning out your multiple sources of income. It is.
I love watching like therapists in our group already, and how many different talents they have. And there's some people that are just getting licensed too, but I met them in person and I'm just like, you were just so cool. And I'm so happy that you're to offer your personality and your talents to the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And the sky's the limit. And what one therapist practice looks like is not going to be the same as somebody else's. And the beauty is it doesn't need to, because there are plenty of opportunities to help people.
And that's what I think the biggest thing that I have learned in practice is that there's a market for everything. Mm-hmm. So there's a market for these things that we're talking about, but there's also a market for therapists who want to work with, you know, low income families that want to work at a clinic, and that's all they want to do, and that's great. There's a place for that.
Correct.
And there's a place there's a market for everything.
For everything. So really envision, what does your ideal practice look like? You know, you might not have that one thing that would just really round out your practice yet. Think about what that would look like and what that would feel like when you have that as part of your practice. And then let's get started in building that into your practice. So it's important to track your progress. And this is just a quick example of, you know, we day in and day out, we're working very diligently on our businesses and helping our clients. And sometimes if we don't pay attention to the progress we've made from year to year, it's hard to see the fruits of our labor, right? Everything that we're sowing today, all of our efforts that we're sowing today will bear fruit in the future. And so if we want our future practice, our own personal lives as well, but if we want that to look a certain way in the future, then we need to do the things we need to do today to accomplish our ultimate vision. And it is possible. We just need to start taking action today. And by tracking where we are, so in 2016, right, this is an example, 2016, this is what the monthly revenue looked like in a practice. And then in 2018, through multiple actions over these years, in 2018, you can see the growth of the revenue. There is, if you look at just the difference between 16 and 17 and 18 for the months of July through December, there's a huge gain there. Huge.
Yeah. So when you're experiencing those ups and downs, you think like, oh, you know, it's so volatile.
Mm-hmm.
Until you see this picture,
right.
Like, oh my gosh,
mm-hmm. And it often, it doesn't So progress doesn't usually skyrocket immediately, right? It's a stair step. It's a stair step. And we have to appreciate that. And without tracking it over long periods of time, you can't appreciate it or see it. It just becomes a feeling. And oftentimes our mind goes into survival mode, and our perception nearly every single time is wrong.
You understand how this works, so you can start to appreciate it.
The numbers don't lie. And there's you can use them to empower you to make informed decisions that push you closer to that ultimate goal. Correct. So one way to really achieve that ultimate goal is to write that goal down. Write it down. And you can use a SMART goal exercise if you want to, or you can use a different exercise. There's the 12-week plan, 12-week year plan. Yes.
It's really amazing. And essentially what it is it's SMART goals extended.
Correct. Right.
The same concept, but it's more comprehensive. It's really easy read. You can read it, I think.
It's a small, right? It's a small book, very small book. And I like the 12-week year a little bit better than the SMART goal exercise, because you literally, every single week, you have an action plan to accomplish the 2 or 3 goals that you set out to accomplish in a quarter.
But the first thing that you need to do with either one of these things is you have to have a vision. And this concept has been woven into this whole conversation we're having with you. What is your vision? What does your ideal practice look like? Who is your ideal client? Who are your 3 ideal clients?
Right. And don't think about what other people are doing. That doesn't matter. You are unique, you are special, and who you resonate with isn't going to necessarily be who other therapists are resonating with. You just think about what your ideal vision is, and you will have it. Fabulous book and movie. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, The Secret changed. I read the book. I didn't see the movie. Yeah. I read the book before it was out on Netflix. So it was probably back in 2014 when I read the book. Yeah. And so totally changed my life. Changed my perspective. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't look for validation. And if somebody's a naysayer or, wow, that's too audacious of a goal. Nothing's too audacious. For heaven's sake, we put a rocket ship on the moon. I mean, nobody thought that would happen, except a few people did, and we did. So
I was told no so many times. I was actually literally sat down and said, "You can't do this." And I just sort of sat there, and you believe it for a little while, but you can. You can help people. You can make money in private practice, and you can have your ideal practice.
Right.
And so if we were running back to the very beginning of this conversation, and we're talking about marketing and how to get your name out there and everything, and now we're talking about goal setting, sit down, write your vision. Who's your set a schedule for yourself. Up your Psychology Today profile so that it's functioning for you, and then start tracking your numbers. With that, go ahead and send us an email. At gmail.com, and the subject line on there and what you're looking to get help with, and we will get back to you very quickly.
Yep.
Respond fast.
Very quickly. Yes. And we'll have a conversation, a phone call, to talk about, what your pain point is, what you need help with, and then talk about what sort of solution there may be to get you there.
Right. And so we have an entire curriculum that will help you practice and order from your website to your marketing to your need. But if for right now you just want your website reviewed or your social media profile reviewed, contact us. We can do that as well on a consultation basis. And Nicole is actually offering to do some work with you
on your profit and loss, building out a plan for your revenue, your expenses, so a projected revenues and expenses, and then working one-on-one for 6 months after that to really establish that habit of tracking and putting processes in place for doing that with ease.
Yes, yes. So we are so excited to bring this to you so that we can help you make your life so much easier and help you have a profitable practice long term.
Absolutely, because if you have a profitable practice, you're out there helping more people, and the world's a much better place because of it.
We look forward to meeting you, and contact us at university@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you very quickly. Have a wonderful day and a beautiful spring.